Hay ada jalan. Oh,
platform, can you hear me?
Mario, we can hear you.
Speaker mic, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Thank you.
sorry about that. Sorry about that, my brother. I'm very excited. Sí. Yeah. No. We must support them.
Support who now?
John.
Recording in progress.
Madam Speaker,
There will now be a moment of silent prayer or meditation. May we be seated. Order, honorable members. The secretary will read the first order of the day.
Consideration of the report of the Joint Standing Committee on Defense on the Midterm Strategic Review of South African National Defence Force.
Honorable K.M. N. Gigaba.
Nkanyezi.
Order, honorable members. Allow Honorable Nkanyezi to start.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, 70 years have passed since our people proclaimed in the face of naked violence that there shall be peace and friendship. This proclamation was prophetic, as the apartheid regime would subsequently embark on a vicious campaign of cross-border raids and regional destabilization. The Freedom Charter would therefore constitute our pledge of good neighborliness with our neighbors all over our continent. It is the heartbeat of our democracy, and its vision of a better world serves as our moral compass, guiding our efforts as we engage with the world. Today, as we table the medium-term strategic review of the South African National Defence Force, we are cognizant of our historic mission to peace both in our country and abroad, achieved through dialogue rather than armed conflict. However, when forces with underlying and malicious agendas threaten to undermine our sovereignty or that of our neighbors, we must be prepared to defend ourselves vigorously. This review was commissioned in part as part of the oversight of the Joint Standing Committee on Defense in the 6th Administration. The aim is to critically examine the current state of our defense force and to present a realistic outlook for the future. A vibrant state always seeks renewal and modernization in an ever-evolving world of statecraft, while upholding its fundamental constitutional obligations, which are to defend the country, protect its people, and uphold its sovereignty. Today, it is clearer than ever that a disciplined, highly competent defense force is an asset to any nation that seeks peace and stability in a volatile world. Our armed forces remain the ultimate guarantors of our sovereignty, peace, and territorial integrity. They are the guardians of our democratic state. This report therefore expresses one of our responsibilities as Parliament, which is to ensure that our military is fully equipped and supported for the execution of its solemn mandate as enshrined in the Constitution. In addition, our defense force is instrumental in fostering peace within our borders, in our region and across the continent. They are expected to play a meaningful role in the protection of people, common values, and the prosperity of our nation. This midterm review reminds us of the importance of our defense force and the fact that it doesn't operate in isolation. It stresses long-term planning, the availability of resources, and need for ongoing transformation. Though published in 2023, subsequent events in the DRC should serve as a catalyst for Parliament to debate the country's defense needs more frequently. This debate should spark a broader debate about the type of defense force we seek as a country. Among others, The report did warn Parliament about the state of the South African National Defence Force, as well as the risks and challenges this posed. Through its capabilities and structure, the SANDF is a microcosm of our democratic state, propelling us forward in unison with other wheels of the state. It is critical, therefore, that we align this report with the National Development Plan and the 2015 Defence Review, which was about creating a defence force that is responsive to modern trends, that is technologically advanced, and most importantly, is people-centered. Even as the refinement of the Defence Review 2015 is still pending, it is important to propose that perhaps the time has come to draft a new white paper in order to map our way forward in terms of our country's defense needs. However, it has been almost a decade since the Defense Review was implemented, making this an opportune time to reflect on some notable strides. These have been attained in the midst of funding constraints and general infrastructure decline, which press upon us the urgent need for rejuvenation and increased oversight. The document under consideration acknowledges these challenges, but it also urges us as members of this House not to be despondent, but rather to tackle our challenges with a great sense of purpose and resolve, coupled with innovative thinking and a solutions-driven approach. It is well documented that over the years, our defense force has experienced severe budgetary constraints, which has led to a gradual decline in operational readiness and affected other aspects such as the morale of our troops and the capacity to mitigate complex challenges. It is important to realize that the cost of maintaining a highly challenged defense force is greater than the cost of beefing up its infrastructure and resources timelessly. Honorable members, peace has no price tag, but an ill-equipped defense force with low morale can cost us dearly as a nation. It is imperative that the defense force is able to maintain our sovereignty, respond to disasters, and continue as an important partner in regional and global peace operations. We must therefore prioritize sustainable and strategic funding for our military. It's imperative to implement the President's directive issued in 2024 aimed at halting the downward funding spiral of the National Defence Force by finding innovative ways gradually to increase defence expenditure to 1.5% of GDP, mindful of the positive externalities of such actions, not only in relation to building defence capabilities, but increasing our manufacturing research output and the defence industry's contribution to our country's overall GDP. Honourable members, it would be an injustice to speak about a 21st century South African National Defence Force without tackling the urgent task of transformation. Our defence force must be a true reflection of the nation that it defends, and a mirror that reflects the key trends of a democratic state, such as equality, dignity, and non-racialism. This includes ensuring that there is gender equality across the ranks and that meaningful career pathways are created to attract ambitious young people who should see in their defense force an opportunity to serve our nation with pride and purpose. This is where the military skills development system plays a vital role, in that the program is an enabler of participation and advancement in the defense force. Through this program, we have witnessed thousands of young South Africans from different parts of our country, many from disadvantaged backgrounds, acquiring skills and lifting themselves out of abject poverty. In addition, they gain something more intangible, yet just as important, a strong sense of identity. The MSDS goes beyond the ambit of youth employment program. It is a critical tool for nation building and acts as a unifier between service and society, and a seedbed for future military and civilian leaders alike. Honorable members, this report also shows our commitment to peacekeeping efforts on the continent. From Mozambique to the DRC, our men and women have stood together with fellow Africans to protect civilians, prevent violence, and serve continental peace. These efforts are not just about charity. They are about solidarity and strategic necessity. Instability in the region threatens our national security and economic development. Moving forward, we must always base our strategic approach on the unwavering commitment to silencing the guns. This is both a continental goal and a moral duty. The Defense Force does not seek war. We are trained for it, but we are also trained for peace building, safeguarding human security, and supporting national development. To silence the guns means investing in early warning systems, mediation mechanisms, border security, and the well-being of citizens. It is about ensuring that no child in Africa grows up in the shadow of a soldier's rifle. Let us approach this task of Defense Force renewal with the energy, resources, and resolve it deserves. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Douglas.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, House. I greet you all in the name of my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And I want to just say it's a blessing to be here. Honorable Speaker, esteemed members of Parliament, and the proud people of South Africa. Today, I stand before this House not merely as a member of Parliament for the Umkhonto Isizwe Party, but as a voice for every soldier who defends our borders, every veteran who sacrificed their youth for our liberation, and every South African whose security and sovereignty hangs in the balance today. We gather here to consider the midterm strategic review of the SANDF, but let us not be fooled. What we are truly examining is a strategic collapse, a systemic dismantling of our military might, and a betrayal of our veterans by a government of national unity that has chosen IMF austerity over sovereignty, corruption over accountability, and political cronyism over military readiness. The Department of Defense's budget for 2025-26 is set at 55.941 billion, a slight nominal increase from 55.50 billion last year. But this is not growth. It is a 3.74% decrease in real terms. How dare this government speak of modernization and readiness when our defense force is being bled dry by budget cuts and bureaucratic negligence? In 1994, South Africa spent 2.7% of its GDP on defense. Today, that figure has withered to a pitiful 0.7% of GDP. This is not just mismanagement, it is strategic sabotage. Our Gripen fighters jets are grounded, our maritime defense program is crippled, and our borders are porous and are wide open, leaving South Africans vulnerable to trafficking in drugs and humans, terrorism, and foreign incursion. Our nation is not at peace. We have threats on the continent that will push southward one day. Our communities are under siege from drugs, human trafficking, and violent crime. Yet our borders are unmanned, our seas are unguarded. It is not incompetence, honorable members, it is willful negligence. Our air defense program, which is supposed to be the backbone of our military strategy, saw a 1.98% real-term decrease this year. In 2023-24, flying hours plummeted from the planned 12,000 hours to just 6,904 hours. Our pilots are trained but grounded. Our jets are operational but unfueled, and our sovereignty hangs by a thread. Gripen fighters, once the pride of our Air Force, now sit decaying in hangars, starve of maintenance and spare parts. It is a national shame that while our skies go unguarded, this government spends 1.62 billion on contractors who deliver nothing but invoices. These are the vultures feasting on our sovereignty while our defense capability rusts away. Imagine, honorable members, our skies unprotected, our pilots trained but unable to fly. If we were invaded tomorrow, we would not even be able to get a defense off the ground. The maritime defense program has been reduced to a shadow of its former self. In 2023-24, the Navy achieved only 2,641 hours at sea, despite a requirement of 10,000 hours. This is not a military force. It is a defenseless fleet, rusting away while illegal fishing vessels plunder our waters and human traffickers smuggle across our shores with impunity. How did we get here? How did the once mighty SANDF become a paper army, a symbol of neglect and decay? The answer is simple. corruption, mismanagement, and political cowardice. The special defense account, which was once the lifeline of military procurement, has been slashed from 7.2 billion in 2015 to 2.8 billion today. Our ports are exposed, our shores are vulnerable, and our navy is hollowed out. While illegal trawlers rip billions from our oceans, our government fiddles with budgets and caters to contractors who have never set a foot on a ship. Honorable Speaker, let me say this without hesitation. Foreign governments cannot dictate how South Africa spends its money. The IMF and World Bank are not partners. They are economic hitmen, extracting our wealth and crippling our sovereignty. Their so-called austerity measures are nothing more than modern economic colonization, designed to keep us weak, indebted, and compliant, but not under Umkhonto. Since the ANC signed us over to these financial overlords, our defense budget has been hollowed out. They tell us to cut defense spending, to downscale military readiness, and to deprioritize sovereignty. And the ANC and GNU are now crippling each other. They are spineless and corrupt. They bow its head in submission, sacrificing our sovereignty on the altar of foreign approval from Brussels and Washington. They sold our sovereignty, not with guns, but with pen strokes, not with tanks, but with loans. In 2025-26, the SANDF is expected to waste another 1.62 billion on contractors, many of whom are politically connected. These are not strategic investments. These are payouts to cronies, bleeding our defense force while our soldiers go without modern equipment and die in the field. Last year, 1.97 billion was spent on travel and subsistence, and another 1.007 billion is projected for this year. While our soldiers sleep in crumbling barracks and eat rationed food, government officials jet set across the globe, burning through public funds with reckless abandon. This is not mere mismanagement. This is the theft from our soldiers and the theft of their lives and the theft from our veterans and the theft from the people of South Africa. Let us speak about our military veterans, the Umkhonto we soldiers, and those who stood on the front lines of our liberation struggle. They were promised dignity, respect, and economic freedom, but they were promised that. But what do they have? Broken promises and empty pockets. The Department of Military Veterans is a monument to ANC and GNU failure, and this budget proves it. According to the 2023-24 Audit Action Plan, the DMV failed to account for 6.5 million in irregular expenditure, including expenses for the MK Unification Conference in East London. Millions worth of military equipment cannot be accounted for. This is not oversight. It is organized corruption designed to loot under the guise of bureaucracy. Under the MK, things will be different. We will rebuild the SANDF to full combat readiness by investing in local manufacturing, creating jobs, cutting out corrupt contractors, and redirecting funds to soldier welfare. We will restore our Air Force and Naval Command with a full fleet of Gripen fighters, maritime patrols, and state-of-the-art equipment. We will launch a forensic audit on every single contract issued by the DMV and SANDF over the last decade. We will end foreign economic colonization. We will establish a national sovereignty fund independent of IMF and World Bank control. We will codify unannounced oversight visits into law so that we as members of parliament can go into any base. We can go into any part and we'll go anywhere and we'll go and see what's going on there and not be stopped at the gates and be told you're not welcome here. We are the representatives of the people. We must be allowed to go into a base and go and see what's happening there. We will honor our veterans with a dignified housing, medical care, and economic inclusion that they were promised and that they paid for with their lives. They went and they fought for us on the borders. They fought for us in this country, and we are their children, and we are the ones that stand with them, and in their honor, we stand here today. So, Mr. Chair, Honorable Speaker, this midterm strategic review is not just a report, it is a confession of state betrayal. We, the Umkhonto we party, reject it with the contempt that it deserves. We demand its immediate overhaul and call for the Minister of Finance to account before this House for its treason against our defense force and against our veterans. We are Umkhonto we and we will not stop until our military is rebuilt, Our sovereignty is restored and our veterans are honored with the dignity that they deserve. Kaiga Gans, I thank you.
Thank you. Honorable C. Hattin. Order, honorable members. Honorable C. Hattin. Order. Order, Honorable Cameroon and Honorable Mangi. Can you be in order? No, you don't have to assist anybody by howling across the floor. Honorable Hattin?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The Joint Standing Committee on Defence's midterm report of 23rd of March 2023 lays bare a stark and sobering reality. A reality that has been reported in almost every portfolio committee and Joint Standing Committee report for the past decade. South Africa defense capabilities are deteriorating and collapsing. And urgent reform is imperative. The SANDF's failure during its summit.
Order, Honorable Hattin, if you can take a seat. What is the point of order, Honorable Member?
Point of order, Speaker, is whether the honourable member will accept a question.
Honorable Member, I would actually say let's allow the member. It's still very short in the program to have a question. Let's allow the member to proceed.
The SANDF's failure during its summit DRC deployment in the DRC earlier this year is not merely a humiliating setback for the SANDF and South Africa. It is a clear warning of the dangerous vulnerabilities in our armed forces. Once a force of regional influence, the SANDF today is unable to meet the evolving security demands of our time. The cause is no mystery: chronic underfunding and the absence of strong principled leadership. Despite the pressing need for modernization and readiness, our forces were deployed in the DRC poorly equipped, unsupported logistically, and without air cover. Instead of neutralizing the M23 rebels, our own troops were neutralized, a national disgrace. This is more than a military failure, Honorable Speaker. It's a national security crisis. Our forces are unprepared, our deterrence capability is nearly zero, and our country is exposed to insurgents operating in Mozambique and to possible conflict spillover from neighboring countries. The failure to prioritize defense is now putting the safety and sovereignty of South Africa at risk. The committee's report rightly calls for a serious reconsideration of the 2015 Defense Review, which remains unfunded, ignored, and unimplemented. 10 years after its adoption, we still operate under the outdated frameworks adopted in 1998. The SANDF is expected to face 21st century threats with 20th century military doctrine, structures, and landward equipment, a recipe for continued failure. The latest Department of Defense annual performance plan is telling. It highlights an ever-growing operational burden paired with a rapidly shrinking budget in real terms. And yet, the department continues to pursue unrealistic ambitions while ignoring the core need for military modernization. It's a business as usual attitude. The question must be asked, how long will we allow fantasy to dictate policy? The lack of progress on the Defense Review has left SANDF rudderless. The absence of clear leadership and funding has crippled not only operations, but force preservation, procurement, and equipment maintenance. What we are seeing is not an accident. It is the result of continued political neglect. The DRC deployment is not an isolated failure. It is a product of deep-rooted systemic flaws, inadequate funding, poor planning, and a government unwilling to confront the truth. This has cost us more than military credibility. It has diminished South Africa's once respected role as a regional peacekeeper and a stabilizer. To restore this role, we must urgently invest in modernization. Our ability to respond to today's complex threats and to lead peacekeeping on the continent depends on it. Without this investment, we are not only failing our soldiers, we are failing South Africa, the SADC region, and Africa. We must also confront the hard truth. Not all missions are equal. We must distinguish between wars of choice and wars of necessity. While peacekeeping is valuable, our first duty remains the defense of South African sovereignty and territorial integrity. SANDF must be capable of both external missions and homeland defense. Speaker, our maritime security is collapsing. The Navy and Air Force, tasked with defending an exclusive economic zone of 1.8 million square kilometers, are hopelessly under-resourced. We are losing this vast space to illegal fishing, piracy, and trafficking because we lack the means to patrol or protect it. With key assets grounded and withdrawn, our coastal defenses are compromised. This put not just our marine economy, but our national security at grave risk. The cost of inaction will be felt in both rands and lives. We must act decisively and immediately. South Africa is at a crossroad. The SANDF must be restructured, re-equipped, and reinvigorated. The security of our nation, the protection of our sovereignty, and our international standing depend on it. Continuing to neglect these precious issues are no longer an option. Honourable Speaker, we cannot afford to delay. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Niehaus.
Honourable Speaker, the EFF rises in this debate with grave urgency. The SANDF is collapsing, threatening our sovereignty and safety. The midterm strategic review tabled on the 23rd of March 2023 exposes a force crippled by corruption, maladministration, and shocking lack of vision. Parliament's 2-year delay in addressing this crisis reveals a shameful failure to prioritize defense and grasp the SANDF's decay. Only the EFF's bold interventions can salvage our nation's shield. The review, rooted in the 1996 White Paper and 1998 and 2015 defense reviews, shows hollow progress. African representation in the SANDF has risen from 38% in 1994 to 76%. This is notable progress. But corruption and maladministration undermine this achievement. 69% of the budget is going to salaries, far exceeding the 40% target, starving equipment maintenance and acquisition. The Department of Defense's unfunded organogram mocks accountability and betrays our troops. The absence of strategy is a travesty. The SANDF's Road to Greatness document, meant for President Ramaphosa last October, remains secret, withheld from Parliament, and a blatant assault on our oversight function. Our soldiers' disastrous role in the SADC mission in the DRC, ill-equipped and unsupported, proves the SANDF cannot execute foreign missions or ensure troop safety in its current state. Overextension is killing the SANDF. Beyond defending our borders, it is burdened with untrained roles fighting crime, tackling illegal mining, and disaster response, draining resources and eroding readiness. The military skills development system is skewed, risking future imbalances. Force rejuvenation is stalled, with the average soldier's age now over 40. The defense budget is a mere 0.76% of GDP. It is an insult compared to the global 2% norm. Our equipment crisis is a disgrace. Gripen fighters have been unserviceable since 2022. Naval frigates and submarines rot without upgrades. The Arms Corps dockyard is in shambles, and Project Hoefyster for infantry vehicles is stalled, risking billions in wasteful expenditure. Training has collapsed. Air Force flying hours have plummeted with barely any planes operation. One military hospital, a dysfunctional construction site for over 15 years, is mired in legal disputes over corrupt tenders. The consequences are deadly. On the 14th of April, Warrant Officer MP Mkube was denied admission to one military hospital and tragically passed away. May his soul rest in peace. The EFF extends heartfelt condolences to his family. This speech is dedicated to him and to all our heroic soldiers who lost their lives in the DRC. We honor their memory by refusing to let the SANDF collapse. Honorable Speaker, without the EFF's proposals, the SANDF will indeed collapse, leaving us defenseless. The EFF demands as a bare minimum the Minister of Defense and military veterans, her two bungling deputies, the Chief of the SANDF and the senior command, callous, corrupt and incompetent, must be relieved of their duties and replaced by capable leaders. An independent anti-corruption unit in the Department of Defense reporting to Parliament to ensure transparent procurement. Defense spending raised to 1.5% of GDP within 5 years, restoring the 40-30-30 budget ratio. A national defense summit to revise the 2015 defense review for a 10-year modernization plan. Improved soldier welfare, salaries, housing, healthcare, and a military skills development system aligned with equity targets. Increased training funds, multinational exercises with BRICS partners, and support for Denel to ensure self-reliance. The SANDF's collapse is a crisis we can avert. These EFF proposals are the only path to a disciplined and equipped defense force. We must act now to honor our soldiers and to secure our future, or face catastrophic consequences, worse than the disastrous DRC deployment. The hour is upon us. Let us rise with courage and do what is right. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Nkosi R.N. Cebekulu.
Thank you, Somlomo. As the cornerstone of national security, the SANDF ensures the protection of citizens against both internal and external threats. Beyond traditional defense, it contributes significantly to peacekeeping operations across the African continent, supports disaster relief efforts, and aids in maintaining civil stability during a crisis. Its presence reinforces South Africa's commitment to peace, security, and regional cooperation, while also fostering discipline, unity, and national pride. In an evolving security landscape, the SANDF remains essential to South Africa's resilience. The IFP notes with a growing concern the increased reliance on the South African National Defence Force for internal deployments, while we welcome initiatives such as the deployment of SANDF engineers to assist with pollution in the Fall River. We caution against the routine use of the military in civilian affairs. Even where such deployments fall within constitutional parameters, their broader implications cannot be ignored. The SANDF, though disciplined and professional, it is not primarily structured, trained, and as resource to sustain internal operations. Such deployments risk diminishing its core defense capabilities and undermines its state of readiness to respond to genuine threats to national security. Overstretching our armed forces in this way is neither sustainable nor prudent. The IFP urges government to strengthen civilian institutions and ensure the SNDF remains focused on its principal mandate to protect the protection of the Republic and its people from external threats. The IFP remains deeply concerned by the ongoing decline in the budget allocation to the South African National Defence Force, while we acknowledge the prevailing economic challenges facing the country. These difficulties cannot justify South Africa's defence spending failing so significantly below international and regional norms. Globally, a 2% of GDP benchmark is often regarded as the minimum threshold for adequate defense funding. Yet South Africa currently allocates only 0.76% of GDP to its defense budget. This is particularly troubling given our strategic role in regional peacekeeping, border protection, and disaster responses. The disproportionate share of the budget absorbed by compensation cost leaves little room for capital expenditure. The growing misalignment between policy objectives and budgetary reality must be addressed. Honorable Speaker, the IFP calls for a more strategic, sustainable, and balanced approach to defense funding, one that preserves the SNDF's ability to fulfill its constitutional mandate and uphold South Africa's national and regional security obligations. Somlom, kuyisho ukuthi umnyango awunakho ukunakekela nokuqela kokunakekela kokuhlinzekelwa kombutho wezokuvikela walelizwe. Abayigqizi qakala ukwehla nje kwezinga lozokuphathwa kwezombutho esibhekele ukuphepha kwezwe. Sikhuluma nje silahlekelwa amasosha amaningi engaphandle ngenxa yokuthi akubangabikho ukuhlinzekelwa kombutho ngesikhathi belapha eDRC. Lokho okwakwenza ukuthi baphelelwe izinto zokuzivikela ngenxa nje yobudedengu. Amabhanoyi ezwe lakithi, more especially i-Royal Falk ethathwa njengenye ama-helicopters anokusebenza nokusiza nokulekelela ekuvikeleni impi uma bekhona ukuhlaselwa. Konke lokho akunakiwe, imali zehla ngemlenze kwabakhulu. Imikhumbi yezempi imile ayisebenzi, amabhanoyi amile onke awasebenzi. Konke ubangelwa inxa yokwehluleka ukuphatha komnyango. Umnyango izahluleke ukuphethe. Ngithokoza kakhulu sihlalo Somlomo.
PA.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Now debate from the Patriotic Alliance.
Thank you. Honorable W. Vessels.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the Honorable Gigaba is correct that South Africa should be ready to defend our borders and to protect our people. Furthermore, an ineffective defense force that lacks resources, training, and lacks the ability to maintain law and order is one of the characteristics, endemically speaking, of a failed state. Put differently, an ineffective defense force can contribute to the failure of a state, as it leads to internal conflicts, vulnerability to external threats, and the collapse of the state's complete authority. In the report, the committee reaffirms the finding of the 2015 Defence Review that the SANDF is in a critical state of decline, with little progress since then made to address the challenges. A lack of training and functioning equipment are prevalent in the SANDF. The Honourable Gigaba refers to budget constraints, and the Honourable Douglas also emphasised the underfunding of the Defence Force. But whilst being correct that there's a budget problem, the most severe crisis is not spending the limited funding effectively. Rather than procuring essential items for deployed troops, vehicles, luxury vehicles for its top brass are procured. In 2019, there was 20 million rand spent on luxury vehicles for chiefs. A little while ago, another 10 million rand was spent. Whilst troops do not have functioning vehicles, whilst they are deployed in the DRC, and whilst these under-resourced troops are killed, the chiefs justify the procurement of Q7 Audis at nearly 2 million rand each as security vehicles. This, Madam Speaker, needs to be addressed. We can have efficient budget, but if this misalignment of the correct priorities continue, the Defence Force will not be effective. Whilst we are rather looking at luxury items for chiefs who's in our country, whilst our troops are suffering and our borders are vulnerable, we will not address the challenges that's identified in the report and has been identified many years ago already in the different reviews. We need real action. Whilst chiefs are ill-disciplined to spend this type of money on luxury vehicles and other luxury items and luxury houses for themselves, that talks to ill discipline, and then you cannot expect the whole military and defense force to be disciplined. We need an effective, disciplined, resourced defense force to protect our sovereignty and to protect our citizens and our people. This is what is needed, and this report needs to be taken seriously, and the necessary steps and consequences needs to be taken. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Ngobeni.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We welcome the Honorable Gigaba's remarks and we pay respects to our fallen heroes. I think in this particular regard, this House is unanimous on our review of this report and also the performance of the SANDF. At first instance, it becomes immediately apparent that there is shared recognition that one, the South African National Defence Force is in a state of operational decline, and two, chronic underfunding directly and immediately threatens its ability to execute its constitutional mandate. Let us not mince our words, honorable members. The SANDF is in free fall. Chronic underfunding isn't just a problem, it's a national threat. And behind it is a government paralyzed by confusion, indecision, and a staggering lack of strategy. It is also very clear that our country is facing a leadership failure of historic proportions. There is no coherent defense plan. Mission readiness is collapsing, operational doctrine is missing in action. This isn't about numbers on a spreadsheet, it's about survival. Years of mismanagement, corruption, and weak leadership have gutted our defense force. Morale is shattered, capacity is gone. The SANDF is in the shell of what it once was. Honorable members, let's be clear. This institution is not a backup plan for broken municipalities. It is not a political convenience. It is the last line between order and anarchy. And this government treats it like an afterthought. The midterm review confirms that what we already know. Problems are obvious, solutions are nowhere. Just look at the state of our prime mission equipment, aircraft grounded, ships rusting, weapons systems offline. It is not a defense force, it's a disaster zone. The days of debates are becoming another talk show, are over. Doing so would make us all complicit in the collapse of our sovereignty. Action SA has warned before that rising global and regional threats demand a strong, ready defense force. But instead, our borders are wide open, our troops are under-equipped, and our government is asleep at the wheel. This review is 2 years old. The situation is worse. The question is, do those in charge even realize we're heading for a cliff? Because if they do and still do nothing, it's unforgivable. South Africa is approaching strategic failure, the kind you don't come back from. Action SA believes in a professional, well-resourced, and corruption-free defense force that can protect our sovereignty and defend our borders and serve with pride. We reject the dangerous notion that accountability can be optional. We demand that the Minister of Defense and senior leadership be held accountable for this catastrophic decline. South Africans deserve better than hollow reviews and tired excuses. They deserve leadership that prioritizes their safety, sovereignty, and stability. We must act swiftly. The government must move from paralysis to action. Parliament must do more than spectate. We demand accountability. This is not just about soldiers or budgets. It is about the survival of the Republic. We finally say to the Defense Force and the department that they must act now or step aside for those who will. I thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Swart.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, the ACDP welcomes this report, and whilst it is belated, it's 2 years old, having been filed in March 2023, it does give an indication then of the implications of the shrinking budget and its impact on defense readiness. And what we now see is, as indicated, a catastrophic decline in our South African Defence Force, where the international norm of 2% of GDP is far beyond what is being spent, where only 0.7% of GDP is being spent, and this has had a devastating impact on defense readiness, as well as on the domestic defense industry, which is a crucial contributor to defense readiness. The misalignment of expenditure between cost of employment and spending on operations and equipment has further aggravated the situation. And yes, this report confirms what we all already know, and the fact that there's been significant further deterioration since March 2023, which has resulted, in our view, in the tragic loss of lives recently in Goma in the DRC. Whilst the report is helpful, it is outdated, and we as the ACDP still believe a full parliamentary oversight inquiry must be held into the DRC deployment once our troops are safely home. This will enable us to ascertain the impact of a shrinking budget, which is now costing the lives of our troops which are deployed. We held such inquiries in Lesotho after the Battle of Bangui in the CAR in 2023 and the Lesotho deployment in 1998. Full parliamentary inquiries were held, and we believe this will assist us in understanding the critical state of our defense force. I thank you. The ACDP will support this report.
Thank you. Honorable C.T. Nondenja.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise today not just in defense of our defense force, but in defense of our democracy. The South African National Defense Force is on the brink, not from the battle wounds, but from budgetary neglect. Year after year, we have seen the SANDF asked to do more with less, protect our borders, respond to natural disasters, suppress unrest, lead peacekeeping missions, all while operating on a shoestring budget. This isn't just unfair, it's dangerous. Our national security is not a luxury, it's a necessity. The latest defense review recommendations are clear. First, we must align SANDF's mandate with realistic funding. We cannot expect positive results on a tap water budget. Secondly, we need to modernize and capacitate the force to meet the 21st century threats, including cyber warfare and regional instability. Thirdly, there must be a clear roadmap for implementation with oversight and political will to drive reforms forward. Madam Speaker, the current administration inherited semi-DRC, and the UTM is so happy to see that project coming to an end. It's high time that the nation focus on capacitating our defense force, which is struggling with underfunding and ill equipment. We cannot afford to lose more soldiers on missions like semi-DRC. While we know very well that our defense is not well equipped to participate in such missions, South Africa must start looking at global norms when it comes to budget allocation to defense force, taking into consideration the mandate of the SANDF. The UTM supports the report of the Joint Standing Committee. I thank you.
Malbongwe.
Thank you, Honorable SS Zibi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The decisive question in this debate should be, how do we arrest the decline of the South African armed forces? I will not restate the reasons our armed forces are in terminal decline because my colleagues from all political parties have already eloquently done so. What is left is for us to decide specifically what is to be done. First, we all need to stop living in the universe we wish we had and face the reality before us. For too long, successive parliaments and administrations have lived under the mistaken belief that we can reduce defense resources and expand the mandate at the same time. If this parliament cannot appropriate a significant budget allocation for the SANDF, then we must accept that it cannot play the continental role we are so attached to. Next week, the Minister of Finance will table a revised budget. It is a proposal to this House, not an instruction. It is up to members of parliament to draw a list of priorities and decide what is less important than defending our borders and allocate resources accordingly. Failure to do this will demonstrate that even this debate is worthless. Second, the history of corruption and maladministration in the Defence Force shows that it is not just ministers who must take accountability, but also senior officers who have overseen atrocious procurement. According to the AG's report, they even show a reluctance to accept civilian oversight in the form of the Secretary of Defense. We cannot renew our Defence Force under the same senior leadership that has failed to manage effectively the scant resources Parliament allocates to them. Third, we need to change recruitment and personnel policy and stop the practice of an infantry force with permanent contracts. The most successful armies in the world have infantry ranks that are in the late teens to mid-20s. In our case, we have corporals and sergeants who are in their 40s and 50s and would not realistically last in a battle. This puts their lives and our security at risk. Except for those who have the potential to be part of the general staff, infantry should exit the Defence Force by age 35 with skills they can use in the real world. Finally, we need to formalize through legislation incremental expenditure on the Defence Force so that we can modernize and renew it to meet the demands of the modern age. There is no further justification for more debates unless we are discussing what and when and what needs to be done is to be done. The proof of our seriousness should start showing with the 2025-2026 budget. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Hlazo Webster.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I think I want to start with the call from Build One South Africa, which is to say that this is one of those reports that cannot afford to be another paper that gathers dust. It has got to be a wake-up call, and it's got to be one that we finally heed. South Africa's national defense is no longer a shield. It's actually become a net, and one that's riddled with holes that are barely held together by outdated hardware, overburdened personnel, and really chronic underfunding. If an enemy were to come and invade South Africa today, we would literally have to politely ask them to wait while we look for one plane that still works and board in it and flee. Honorable members, the findings of this strategic review should actually send shockwaves through this House, and it should ring the alarm through every single corridor of government. The report is a warning siren that our defense force is in a state of quiet crisis. The SANDF is underfunded, overstretched, and unprepared when you consider the numbers. An inconsequential 0.76% of GDP is what South Africa's defense budget is. It is therefore among the lowest of any major middle-income country. Worse still, nearly 69% of the entire defense budget is swallowed up by personnel costs, and that leaves crumbs for operations, for maintenance or procurement. It means we have a defense force that cannot train properly, it cannot maintain its equipment, it cannot fly its aircraft, and it cannot deploy at scale unless it's already in the middle of a crisis. Honorable Speaker, as of 2022, not one of our Gripen fighter jets was serviceable. Only one C-130 transport aircraft was flight ready, one single airplane. Our Navy's frigates and submarines are drifting toward obsolescence. And all the while, Treasury has stubbornly ignored the Defense Committee's recommendations to ring-fence the funding for critical midlife upgrades. And I say this because this is a two-year report. Here's the paradox. While we cut the budget in real terms, we actually ask SANDF to do more and more. We ask them to do flood relief, pandemic response, anti-gang deployments in the Cape Flats, border patrols. We treat it as an all-purpose emergency service without the budget and without the tools. And the Defense Committee was clear. This is not sustainable. We are wearing down our armed forces and we're using them to plug gaps in civilian capability. And the result is that both systems suffer. It's not merely a budgeting issue. We actually are risking national security. So again, I say this report cannot afford to be another paper that gathers dust, and it's got to be a wake-up call. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Zumula.
Thank you, Speaker. This report confirms what many in the defense environment have long warned, that the SANDF is overstretched, underfunded, and misaligned with the threats of the 21st century. The reduction in defense spending is not just a budgeting decision, it is a national security risk. Hence, we have porous borders in our country that are not protected by the defense that is obligated to protect the territorial integrity of our country. It is a contradiction of the highest order that we deploy our troops to Mozambique and the DRC while failing to provide them with the adequate resources, mental health support, and modern equipment. We come to debates and praise their heroism, but we fail to protect them. This cannot continue. The ATM refuses to sit silently whilst our troops are treated unjustly or worse, lied to by the Department of Defense. We have received credible first-hand reports from the deployed members in the DRC that the soldiers are entitled to $1.28 per day for water, $5 per day in cash, $11 per day for recreational allowances. But these are given with stern warnings and threats, limiting their ability to raise concerns. Even more troubling is the fact that the troops are told they will receive 108,000 per month in deployment allowances only after returning to South Africa. Yet some are already receiving this money while others are not. This proves that the statement that everyone will be paid upon return is a blatant lie. So siyabuza si-ATM, yeyiphi enye into ekuxokiswa abantu ngayo, because it is very clear that the department is lying and misleading the people of this country, and also misleading the soldiers who are risking their lives in the missions across the continent. We want to ask, are the ghost deployments, are funds redirected somewhere? Is a deliberate effort to collapse the defense of our country and render the country vulnerable to any foreign threats that may come? We already see in droves multitude of military-age men coming to South Africa, and they come through our borders without any form of accountability in the defense. Also, we want to say, Speaker, the defense must take good care of the soldiers and pay them what they are worth. Lamasela must not be allowed to continue undermining the people of this country, come to parliament and play political games, keep on making lies and lies, talking about how they are serious about protecting the sovereignty of our country. Yet in practice, they are deliberately sabotaging
Thank
our
you,
country.
Honorable Member. Your time is up. Honorable Plaatjes.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you to this August House for the opportunity. Firstly, let us not forget, Speaker, under whose leadership did the underfunding of the defense started. The midterm review of defense coincides with a crucial point in our country, our continent, and the world. I'd like us to consider what it means to be a sovereign country amidst complex security challenges in the global world, ranging from cyber threats, maritime insecurity, climate-driven disruption, and widespread human displacement. Therefore, it demands a defense force that is fit for purpose and able to respond effectively to the state of almost constant disruption. For this, we need time to examine the capabilities and infrastructure, moral and overall direction of the critical institution. At the center of this review lies a simple but powerful truth and should resonate with all of us that without peace, there can never be development. Peace is dependent upon the number of factors. Some, justice, equality of opportunity, sound institution, excellent service delivery. That also a strong defense force. A strong, capable defense force is able to fulfill its constitutional mandate of protecting all of these other critical services. Many misconstrue that the defense force is simply a body task for defending our borders, while that is certainly part of its work in context of the world where we are living in. Our military also has a responsibility of protecting our maritime trade routes and responding accordingly to when we are confronted with internal emergencies. Preserving its actor in our integrity of the state, our democratic ideals, and everyone who lives within our borders. It is therefore important that we have a force that not only boasts critical capabilities, but that is non-partisan and well respected in the domestically and continentally warfares. Honorable members, our country operates within a global ecosystem. Our security as a nation is intertwined with that of our neighbors. From Cape Town to Sahel, from Atlantic Ocean to the Indian Ocean, conflict and instability are ever present and have a potential to send ripples throughout the continent, affecting our development and growth, and ultimately undermining livelihoods and disintegrating of institutions in our region. This is the reason why the Defense Force continues to play a leading role in contribution in the continental peace missions. I'd like to use this platform and opportunity also to extend our heartfelt condolences to the 14 South African soldiers who lost their lives while deployed in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Their sacrifice was not in vain. These brave men and women laid down their lives in pursuit of peace beyond the borders, embodying the highest ideals of service. We honor their memory and we are using the tragedy to examine our defense critically, seeking ways to improve our communication infrastructures, morals, and overall efficiency. In the DRC, our forces deployed under SAMITEC have played an important role in protecting civilian population. These peacekeeping and stability missions, to the fact that our defense force while it's in need of improvement, has the capability of navigating complex security environments. In the DRC, we have gained valuable operational experience while advancing important diplomatic ties in the pursuit of better Africa and a better world. Honorable members, our pursuit of peace and stability on the continent is anchored by our participation in multiracial defense cooperations platform, and particular SADC and BRICS. Through the security architecture of our regional blocs, SADC, we have been able to contribute to stability through joint exercise, and we have supported the establishment of rapid response capabilities through the SADC standby forces. Our participation in the body ensured that we are able to move in unison as a region and tackle security threats. I think it is also critical that we deepen our interaction with the SADC regional logistics base in Gaborone, effectively coordinate humanitarian and peacekeeping operations. It is institutions like these that enable us and our neighbors to effectively respond to the security challenges that face our entire continent and advance a principle of the African Union to silence the guns as outlined in the AU Agenda 2063. Our involvement in BRICS defense corporations has also fostered a strategic competitive edge. Through BRICS, we have partake in joint training programs, exchange knowledge in research and development. These platforms are extremely valuable as no institution can remain vital and effective without constant learning and growth. While defending our sovereignty is our defense force's primary duty, we must bear in that we are only able to do so through both training and producing of necessary equipment and defense ourselves. It is where the revitalization of DINEL and ARMSCO comes in. These institutions must be treated as a national strategic assess they are. DINEL is critical to our sovereignty and as our nation. We have to return DINEL to its former glory as the world-class defense manufacturer, capable of stimulating our economy through localization and innovation. We need to ensure that we strengthen its core business areas, protect its intellectual property, and through African continental free trade, unlock new markets and on the continent while abiding with legislation to govern ethical arms trade practices. DINEL would be an anchor for creation and enable youth people to gain valuable skills in the high-tech sector. Equally so, ARMSCO's procurement function must be responded to and also to the needs of SADC itself. Lacking a reliable, credible procurement system is adverse effect to the defense force, particularly in the area of modernization and dynamic security environment. In short, honorable members, it is our duty as the House to ensure that our men and women in uniform are supported and properly resourced, and is any other high-functioning institution. While we build a just and democratic society, we have always envisaged we must know the guardians of our constitutional state are equipped, trained, and ready, and well-resourced. This will require energy and determination and also resource.
Thank you, honorable member. Your time has now expired. Is there a speaker on behalf of Al Jamaa?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. It's Advocate Sali. I am online.
Please continue.
The SANDF current state is a reflection of broader challenges facing South Africa, a lack of investment, poor leadership, and a failure to prioritize national security. The standoff with Rwanda and the DRC conflict has exposed these weaknesses and highlighted the urgent need for reform. South Africa has the potential to rebuild its military and reclaim its role as a continental leader, but this will require bold action and long-term commitment. The consequences of inaction are dire. The question is not just whether the SANDF can take on a force like Rwanda, but whether South Africa is willing to do what it takes to ensure that it never has to face such a challenge unprepared. The South African NDF has long been a symbol of national pride, a force that once projected power across African continent and played a pivotal role in peacekeeping missions. However, the current state of the SANDF paints a troubling picture, one of decline, neglect and vulnerability. With our geopolitical climate, it is vital we be alert to our vulnerability. We need to understand that the decreased budget through the years has crippled our defense force. We cannot afford not to look after our defense force and to fail in realizing importance of adequate skills, qualifications, abilities of a defense force with modern equipment and ensure adequate resources. We need accountability and transparency in action. Respect and appreciate our soldiers and compensate them adequately. Give them the needed resources. This report needs to be taken seriously and an increased budget is urgently needed. I thank you.
Thank you. The NCC. Honorable Adams, are you online? If not, then we move on. The PIC. The UIT.
From Africa. The United African Transformation rise today with a principled Pan-African response to the report tabled by the Committee of Defense. We do so not as an isolated South African voice, but as part of the broader African soul. We do so not merely as politicians, but as children of the soil, the descendants of the warriors of our liberation armies, of Umkhonto weSizwe, Frelimo, and the Mau Mau. We began with the truth we must never forget. Every troop everywhere in Africa is our troop. Every African soldier in the continent is our soldier. Their lives are not our strategic assets.
I thought of.
They are the blood of our brothers. When the soldier fought in Goma,
just hold on. Honorable Mahlatsi, just hold on for a moment. Honorable members on the virtual platform, please ensure that you remain muted. You're not yet recognized to speak. Honorable Mahlatsi, please continue.
What about my time?
I will use my discretion in your favor.
We begin with the truth we must never forget. Every troop deployed everywhere in Africa is our troop. Every African soldier in our continent is our soldier. Their lives are not our strategic assets. They are the blood of our brothers. When a soldier falls in Goma, in Cabo Delgado, in Sudan, that loss is no less than a South African life. It is our African blood spilling. It is a life worth saving under the circumstances. The committee noted the finalization of SANDF integration process and raised concern about the representative. We acknowledge the work done since 1996 to make our military look like South Africa. But we must ask a harder question: representation of what purpose? If Africans' faces dominate the barracks, but the SANDF is guided by doctrine not rooted in African liberation, then what are we doing in decorating colonial frameworks with African faces? That is not transformation. That is tokenism. Our military must be Pan-African not only in personnel, but in purpose, in training, in strategy, and in ideology. The committee is right to observe that morale is low. Defense readiness is declining. The strategic capability eroding. But the question remains, why? And here is our answer. Speaker,
Honorable Mahlatsi, just hold on again. Honorable Dunjwa, it's now the second time that you have unmuted and spoken over the speaker on the platform. If it happens again, I will ask that you be removed.
Remove him. Usikalabala nakwa kandate. Because SNDF has been reduced to a reactive institution, it is stressed between internal domestic deployment and external peacekeeping efforts with no clear vision of what is meant to become. It is a local riot force when the police fails. It is a protector of corporate assets, or it is what UAT envision, a liberation army in service of African unity, peace, sovereignty. What cannot boost morale without belief in mission? And that mission must be Africa. Kani mambo.
Thank you, Honorable Shelembe.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. The Democratic Alliance wants to express.
Honorable Shelembe, you don't have the type of rally voice the Honorable Mahlatsi have. Just move the microphone down slightly.
Thank you, thank you. Honourable Speaker, the Democratic Alliance wants to express its appreciation that the midterm strategic review report of the South African National Defence Force is finally being debated today after so many years. The Joint Standing Committee on Defence is required to conduct a strategic review on the SANDF midterm in the life of a particular parliament and submit it to the houses on its transformation, integration, equity, morale, and defense readiness. These issues are discussed against the background of the 1996 White Paper on Defense, the 1998 Defense Review, and the 2015 Defense Review, respectively. Honourable Speaker, Chapter 11, Section 200 of our Constitution clearly states that the Defense Force must be structured and managed as a disciplined military force. The primary object of the Defense Force is to defend and protect the Republic, its territorial integrity, and its people in accordance with the Constitution and the principles of international law regarding the use of force. The question we ask ourselves is, does the SANDF possess the operational capability and combat readiness to undertake the constitutional obligation? The simple answer is no. This is premised on the Defense Committee's observation on the defense readiness after its engagement in oversight of defense bodies that impacts directly on combat readiness. Our country is not adequately protected against all threats. Sibi kakhulu isimo sombutho wezokuvikela engicabanga ukuthi le ndlela kumele ivumelane isebenze ngokubambisana ukusilungisa sibi kakhulu. Honourable Speaker, our prime mission equipment is in a terrible state and many are not serviceable. The combination of maintenance constraint and a lack of investment into new prime mission equipment is another area of concern, and it impacts directly on the level of SANDF force readiness. The continued reduction in the defense allocation has a direct negative impact on defense readiness, and it diminishes the funds available for key readiness activities, notably training, operations, acquisition, and maintenance of relevant prime mission equipment. Additionally, it impacts negatively on the domestic defense industry, which is crucially a contributor to defense readiness. And this is premised on the fact that the lack of vibrant and self-sustaining defense industry in any country should be seen as a conventional military limitation as it breeds reliance on its international arms import. As a Joint Standing Committee in the 6th Parliament, after extensively interacting with the South African defense industry, we noted that the defense industry relies almost exclusively on exportation for its income due to lack of acquisition by the SANDF. This House must note with concern that the continuing challenges, which include financial mismanagement and the corruption in Denel, undermines the defense industry as a whole, with many smaller suppliers reliant on Denel for its subcontracting. Without the realignment of the NEL and defense industry as a whole, the domestic defense industry runs the risk of losing the key sovereign capabilities, which impacts on the defense readiness. The Joint Standing Committee on Defense further noted during the period preceding the Sixth Parliament, and increasingly so since 2019, amplified reliance on the SANDF for the internal support to other government departments, as well as external conventional military support. This increased reliance on the SANDF was noted after consideration of many presidential letters of deployment related to, inter alia, the following internal defense force deployment. In 2018-2019, the president deployed SANDF engineers to address the pollution on the Vaal River. In 2019, the president deployed soldiers to the SAPS police service to combat crime in the Western Cape. Several large-scale deployments in 2020 and 2021 as part of the efforts to combat the COVID-19 pandemic by the president. Large-scale deployment in 2021 to Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal due to the widespread civil unrest by the president. The 2022 deployment to KwaZulu-Natal following the flooding in the province, and all those deployments were in addition to the SANDF standing deployment of 15 sub-units for the purpose of border safeguarding. The Joint Standing Committee further considered several external deployments, including one, the continued provision of 1,000 soldiers to the United Nations peacekeeping operation Menstrual in the DRC, and the deployment of more than 1,000 soldiers under Operation Tiba by the semi-DRC for peacekeeping in the DRC. Speaker, the internal deployment of soldiers in support of the police and other government departments is aligned with constitutional mandate of the force, but our soldiers are not fully suited, trained, funded, and equipped for internal deployment. Having said that, the increased deployment of soldiers under these conditions adds additional strain on the defense force to maintain high levels of defense readiness. In terms of defense readiness, the Democratic Alliance confirms that the findings of the 2015 Defense Review that the SANDF is in a critical state of decline, and there is little progress being made to address these ongoing challenges. The increasing compensation of employees and the decreasing availability of prime mission equipment is a serious concern, and we look forward to the SANDF's engagement with this crucial report. Siyabonga kakhulu ukuthi isiphakamiso seqembu le-DA ukuthi amasotsha ethu abe lapha e-DRC abuye ekhaya, iSADC isamukelile. Our soldiers are now being withdrawn from the DRC and on the way home as we speak now. Thank you.
Honorable Sokanyile.
Thank you, House Chair. Honorable members, we gather at this critical time to discuss the current state and future of our defense force, recognizing that people are its greatest asset. A great nation's true strength lies not only in its ideals and institutions, but in its ability to defend and protect this asset. For this, it needs both equipment and disciplined and dedicated armed forces. However, our armed forces do much more than defend us militarily. As we reflect on the midterm strategic review of the South African National Defense Force, we need to be aware that the role of the military extends beyond the military barracks. Its actions touch the lives of ordinary people on a daily basis through its ability to maintain peace, bring order where there is chaos, assist with efficiency where there are disasters, and in these ways, to be a catalyst of development. The South African National Defense Force has reached a critical point in its life. It is called upon when there are conventional threats it has also played a peacekeeping and development role in the context of changing domestic and global environment. This debate will allow us to reflect on the strides that have been made in confronting the various challenges faced by our defense force and to devise solutions which will propel us forward as a nation. At the center of this midterm strategic review is the imperative of transforming the South African National Defence Force into a force that mirrors the values of our democratic dispensation. This transformation is not just an abstract concept, but speaks to its daily operation, such as recruitment, the way it trains its people, and the way it engages with the society it serves. It is important from time to time to reflect on and appreciate our history, as this gives us the insight and the clarity to forge a future that builds on the successes and sidesteps the errors. In the past, the Defense Force was used to advance the interest of the minorities at the expense of majority, and to suppress all efforts to establish justice and liberty for all. Today, that is no longer the case. Since 1994, we have been able to transform the SANDF into a force that reflects the demographics in our society, that is diverse and inclusive in terms of race and gender, and that seeks to contribute to society rather than to impose itself on society for oppression and restriction. The defense force that we have today is no longer the preserve of the few. Instead, it is playing a vital role, not only on its core mandate, but in uplifting, upskilling, and imparting direction to countless young lives. The transformation of the Defense Force, an ongoing project, is multifaceted. It includes changing the demographics, expanding its positive role in the developmental state, and adhering rigorously to the ethical principles that the country as a whole upholds. Being ethical means being against corruption, sexual misconduct, the abuse of power, and any other act that erodes a legitimacy of our defense force. It also means having the will and the wherewithal to take action when infringement occurs. Honourable members, this review will not be complete without attention paid to the critical issue of the state of the infrastructure of our military bases, facilities, and training academies. Years of defunding and aging stock, much of which has now reached the end of the lifespan, is having an adverse effect on operation efficacy. The issue needs to be addressed. It is also important that we recognize our Defense Force triumph in the midst of these challenges. For instance, the Defense Works formation is a creative model that has been integral in arresting some infrastructural decline. By using internal capacity to deal with some of the infrastructural challenges, we will be able to reduce dependency on external contractors, which will save us from dipping into the fiscus. While this program is underway, it is also important that we empower our personnel with skills and invigorate them with renewed dedication and morale for the essential role they play in our country and the continent. It is vital that the Defense Work formation is expanded to include personnel and a holistic infrastructure revitalization plan. This can form part of public work programs, which should be tasked with upgrading our barracks, armories, and clinics. The revitalization these entities has the potential to contribute quite meaningfully to the socio-economic development. Honourable members, a reliable defense force must be equipped to upgrade its own skill. That is why it is important that our training academics and colleges are in the best possible state in the quality of the infrastructure and personnel to develop such successive generation to serve our armed forces with pride and excellence. From the South African Military Academy in Saldanha to the infantry school in Oudtshoorn, it is critical that we see improvement in the standard of training. The training offered in our school must be up with the best practices globally. We simply cannot afford a relaxing of standards and lowering of morale in these vital sites of training and attitude formation in these institutions that must produce not only soldiers, but vigorous cooperative problem solvers ready to contribute to our nation building project in a variety of capacities. In conclusion, honorable members, let us remember that the defense of the country is not exclusive to men. Evoking the spirit of Umama Charlotte Maxeke, let us ensure that our commitment to gender parity is extended to battlefield and the barracks. Many strides have been made in this regard. South Africa currently ranks among the few countries where women serve in active combat roles, command ships, and lead military units. We are proud to count among our pioneers Major Mandi Samfeka, who made history as a South Africa's first Black female combat pilot. Her role in the South African Air Force and her presence during the major national fire blast has captured the imagination of young girls across the country. She has become a powerful advocate for gender equality in STEM fields and an inspiration to the many who may not thought they belong in uniform, let alone in the sky. You know, House Chair, it gives me a worry that there are some honorable members that are here just to reject everything that is presented here. And then, honorable members, as we debate this report, let us reset the idea that a transformed defense force is one that not only defends against threat, but that actively builds peace, stability, and opportunity for all. For this, it needs equipment, infrastructure, excellent personnel, and
Thank you, honorable
ongoing
member.
training and growth. Thank you. I rest my case.
Honorable members, I now recognize the Chief Whip of the largest party.
Well, thanks, Chair. Good afternoon to you and good afternoon to honorable members. I want to move that this report to be adopted. Thank you.
Honorable members, the motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections? Honorable Manye.
Thank you, House Chair. The MK party rejects this report with contempt it deserves.
Thank you. Any other objections? With that objection noted, the report is accordingly agreed to. The Secretary will read the last order of the day.
Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities on petition calling for on Assembly to investigate provision of free sanitary pads and menstrual health.
The Honorable Van der Merwe.
Honorable House Chairperson, I rise on behalf of the Portfolio Committee on Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities to affirm our committee's commitment to ensuring sanitary dignity for all. We add our voices to all those calling for an end to period poverty. For period poverty sees far too many young girls and women suffering the harsh reality of not having access to affordable sanitary products. The lack of sanitary dignity is not just a matter of inconvenience. It is a barrier that robs many young women of their dignity and their future. When girls are unable to manage their menstruation safely, many are forced to stay at home, missing vital days of school. This ongoing cycle of exclusion perpetuates gender inequality. The Portfolio Committee on Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities met on 29 October 2024 to consider a petition submitted by Ms. Nokozola Ndwandwe, the founder of Team Free Sanitary Pads. Her clarion call, access to sanitary products, is not just a privilege, but a fundamental human right. That it's about dignity, about health, and about potential futures at stake. The petition also maintaining that sanitary dignity is a basic human right as protected by Section 27 of our Constitution. Team Free Sanitary Pads further proposed addressing the need for sanitary dignity through a menstrual and hygiene management bill, emphasizing that menstruation should be recognized and managed as a health issue, not merely a hygiene concern. Apart from hearing the petition, the Portfolio Committee on Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities also afforded our department the opportunity to hear the petition. Our department did not support the proposed legislation as outlined. Instead, the department maintained that the current policy framework, the sanitary dignity framework, was a more cautious and realistic approach to implementation. However, there was an acknowledgement that government currently, due to financial constraints, were unable to reach all learners. The committee, having deliberated and engaged with the petition and the response by the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, resolved on specific recommendations. Due to time constraints, I will just focus on two. Firstly, we resolved that we must ensure that education and awareness on menstrual health is integrated into the life orientation curriculum at primary school level. We also resolved that it's imperative to review existing policies and conduct comprehensive assessments to identify gaps in the sanitary dignity program. To this end, there has already been progress. Since the committee heard this petition, it has already called all 9 provinces, along with the national and provincial departments of basic education and social development, to report on the implementation of the sanitary dignity program. We have already engaged with premiers and MECs. In addition, the committee undertook an oversight visit to KwaZulu-Natal to assess the implementation of the SDP. As the committee conducts its oversight, it intends also speaking to National Treasury and holding to account all provinces. The committee has already started looking into the financing of the SDP, gaps in the provision of sanitary towels, and SABS compliance. While we support and applaud Ms. Ndwande's efforts, our committee agreed not to proceed with the petition because fundamentally it's calling for a health bill, and we are not the health portfolio committee. Doesn't fall under our mandate. As this portfolio committee, however, in the 7th administration of Parliament, we will focus all our efforts on dismantling the barriers that hinder the progress of girls and women. We will put the interest of women in
Honorable
youth.
Van der Merwe, just hold on for a moment. Honorable Mani, please take your seat, Honorable Van der Merwe. Honorable Mani, why do you want to be recognized now?
Thank you, House Chair. Just to check if the member will take the question about whether
No, just hold on. Don't tell us what the question is yet. Honorable Van der Merwe, are you prepared to take a question?
Can I please finish my report? Thank you so much.
Honorable Mani, no.
As I said, as a portfolio committee in this 7th administration of Parliament, we remain committed to ensuring sanitary dignity for all. And we will focus all our efforts on dismantling the barriers that hinder the progress of girls and women. We will put the interests of women, youth, and persons with disabilities at the very center of everything we do. And we will leave no stone unturned in ensuring that we work towards, within our mandate, a future where no child or woman is forced to drop out of school because of period poverty. I table this report for this House's consideration. I thank you.
Thank you. Honorable members, political parties wishing to make a declaration will now be recognized and given an opportunity to do so. The usual times will apply. The DA.
Honorable members, we applaud the initiative taken by the Team Free Sanitary Pads by bringing a petition before Parliament raising critical issues which affect young girls who are in school. According to a study conducted by South African Journal of Child Health, approximately 7 million girls are reported to miss school each month due to a lack of access to sanitary pads, resulting in them missing about 25% of their learning during the school year. The issue is particularly prevalent in rural and under-resourced areas where inadequate sanitation facilities and the high cost of menstrual products exacerbate the problem. Additionally, cultural stigmas surrounding menstruation can lead to embarrassment and fear of accidents, further discouraging school attendance during periods. While we commend the government's commitment to provide free sanitary towels for indigent schools, that was announced by former Minister of Finance, the late Tito Mboweni, in 2018, we must acknowledge that more work still needs to be done to ensure this resolution is successfully implemented to ensure that the sanitary towels reach intended recipients. While the Free State has assured us that they've dealt with their problems in procuring sanitary towels for learners, we will keep a close eye on whether any girls have been disadvantaged. Some of the issues that were raised during our deliberations, we inquired if the department worked in collaboration with the NGOs that were also distributing sanitary towels, and if not, the reasons thereof for the lack of collaboration. We also registered our concerns that there was insufficient engagement between the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities and the Department of Basic Education on the implementation of Sanitary Dignity Program. We were also concerned that the distribution and provision of sanitary towels were in certain instances kept in the offices of school secretaries. This in turn led to the learner's dignity being impaired, having to request for sanitary products as opposed to being issued discreetly. We were also concerned with the distribution of sanitary towels that were not SAPS approved and the distribution in general to the relevant beneficiaries. Chairperson, we emphasize that there was a need to engage the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition to address the issue of retailers that were selling sanitary towels that were not SAPS approved. We also questioned the number of actual beneficiaries that were targeted in each province versus the number provided in the presentation, the signed receipt register by beneficiaries, and detailed breakdown of the budget spent on sanitary towels and transportation thereof. Honorable Chairperson, this Parliament cannot turn a blind eye when Premier Lusufi sits on a dignity pack fraud report dating back to September 2020. Some of the recommendations that we made in the portfolio was that the non-delivery of the sanitary towels to all provinces need urgent monitoring and evaluation and a report back to the committee accordingly. And that in respect of the sanitary towels procurement, that was considered expensive in the Northern Cape, the committee resolved that the department had to consider other available interventions, like procuring the products from other provinces that could be proposed to the Northern Cape province. The monitoring and evaluation of the SDP implementation should not be limited to the provision of sanitary towels, but broadly focused on menstrual health. Honorable members, we also know that the Minister of Basic Education has eradicated 97% of the pit toilets. We believe this plays a huge role in implementation of water supply, sanitation, and hygiene programs. The Democratic Alliance will call on the Premier Lusufi to act on the Sanitary Dignity Report, which details how officials in the Provincial Social Development Department devised a scheme to circumvent procurement processes to unlawfully and willfully enrich themselves and certain suppliers to the detriment of the public. I thank you.
Thank you. The MK. Honorable Manu, do you want to be recognized first?
Thank you, House Chair. House Chair, we are very worried as the MK Party in terms of how the proceedings of this House are being moved. In the order paper today, the two matters that we have are matters for debate. And for the matters for debate this matter for debate, for it to be converted into a declaration, which process was used to arrive at this, Chair, and why is it was not even announced?
Yeah.
Because at the Chief Whips Forum, we agreed that we're going to have these matters as debates. At the programming committee this morning, nothing was changed. So which procedure and which structure was used to undermine the decisions of those duly constituted and mandated forums which make such decisions? So we want to
Yeah.
object to the changing of the agenda unilaterally by I don't know who. And for us as the MK Party, because we've prepared to do in terms of the procedure, our time for the submission here is 10 minutes as per the debate, Chair.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Manya. Honorable Dagbo, as the programming whip, I'm going to recognize you, but the one thing we cannot do is to convert a sitting of the National Assembly into a programming committee. I would suggest strongly to all members that any grievances about what occurred here, and I also don't know, that be dealt with in the appropriate forum, which is the programming committee. Having said that, I will recognize the hands. It is a plea for us to maintain the decorum and deal with the matters at hand, but I won't suppress anyone. Honorable Dagmore, and then I will go to other hands.
No, thank you very much, Chairperson. I think it's clear, Chairperson, that the medium strategic term review, which we have just completed, was clearly programmed for debate. The matter of the report of the Standing Committee was not, and if we can provide that program again, was not programmed for debate. As we discussed this morning, in fact, it doesn't stop anyone making a declaration, although we agreed that we should try and have advance notice of that. So the Honourable Member Manye is in fact not correct. Only the medium-term strategic review, the defence strategic review, was programmed for debate. This particular report from the committee was not programmed for debate.
Thank you. Yeah, as it is, it would seem there's I want to say, disputed facts. Honorable Ntlangwini, I'm going to recognize you and then we must move on.
Thank you, House Chair. I think indeed, there's a confusion here, and this confusion is done, I don't know, deliberately or unintended by the ANC. We have agreed that this is going to be a debate, and hence it implicates on our minutes of that. Hence we are asking, we are turning it now into a declaration, which is fine, but at least alert to us to say it's now a declaration and not a debate, and therefore it will impact on your minutes. So I think the programming work next time, just get your program in order, Mr. Dagmore, and get your things up to date. But it was indeed said it will be a debate and not a declaration on both of them. It was even communicated to us that it will be a debate. But it's fine, we can do the declaration, but it was said to us it will be a debate.
Thanks. Look, honorable members, I don't think it's in the best interest of sittings of the National Assembly to deal here with procedural issues. May I ask that the matter be placed on the agenda of the next programming committee? As it is, our order paper for the day makes it clear that this is for declarations only. We will now proceed with the declarations, the MK.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, today we rise not to beg, but to expose. Umkhonto weSizwe Party, we are not here to decorate the failures of this so-called government of national unity. We are here to tear down its mask of compassion and reveal its cold. Calculated neglect
Order,
of
honorable
black
members.
girl children across South Africa. This government has reduced the most basic human dignity, menstrual health, to a luxury.
Choosing fly
Girl
Saturday.
insects-
You're
girl-
online now.
Honorable member at the podium, just hold on for a moment. Honorable Legetwe on the virtual platform, you are formally warned that if you again unmute and interject, you will be removed from the platform. Honorable member, please continue.
The government has reduced the most basic human dignity, menstrual health, a luxury. Girls in shacks and rural villages are still bleeding into socks, newspapers, and shame. They are skipping school, missing opportunities, and carrying the cost of a crisis this government refused to fix. The state has blood on its hands. The Portfolio Committee on Women, Youth, Persons Live with Disabilities noted this crisis in its November 2024 reports following the desperate petition by Team Free Sanitary Pads. But the ANC-led state responded not with action, but with bureaucracy, more meetings, more frameworks, and more broken promises. We do not need another report. We need radical change. President Cyril Ramaphosa introduced us to his fairy tale character, Dintswalo, in February 2024, a symbolic democracy baby supposedly thriving under 30 years of ANC rule. But we know the real Dintswalo, she is 15 years old, living in a shack in Timbaza, raised by a grandmother, surviving on 2,180 grand. She bleeds every month but cannot afford 45 rand for pets. That's 25% of the child support grant gone just to manage menstruation. Her crime being born black, being born a girl. She loses 60 days of school every year to full months. Her education is stolen. Her dignity is shattered. Her government missing in action. The facts expose a national disgrace. 1 in 10 girls miss school due to lack of pads. Only 3 provinces have partial sanitary pads programs. National Treasury allocated just 200 million over 3 years, that less than the VIP protection budget for ministers in a single year. Progress reports are non-existent, implementation is incompetent, and money meant for advocacy is redirected to administration and salaries. 10.3 million underspent, proof of criminal neglect, no mere oversight. Menstruation is not a choice. Silence is. This government hides behind a toothless sanitary dignity framework. There is no law, no enforcement, no agency. The department claims it is a service delivery institution, yet still draws salaries.
Thank you, honorable member.
Vehicle while young girls.
Thank you, honorable member. Your time has now expired. The EFF.
Greetings to the Commander-in-Chief, officials and ground forces of EFF and fellow South Africans. Chairperson, let's first take this opportunity to thank Ms. Ndwandwe on behalf of Free Sanitary Pads. She has submitted this motion in Parliament in August 2024. in which she asked for an investigation into the feasibility of the provision of free sanitary pads and menstrual health generally. This is in line with the long-standing position of the economic freedom fighters that the state has the ultimate responsibility towards the girl child and to women more in general, to ensure that their biological necessity of menstruation does not hamper with their ability to function. We took this position after realizing that most children in rural areas and in the townships miss out on schooling for at least 1 week per month when they are on their periods. This is because they cannot afford sanitary pads during this period and therefore opt to stay at home rather than go to school without the protection offered by free sanitary towels. This petition, therefore, is and was fully supported by the economic freedom fighters. We were particularly pleased by the presentation by Ms. Ndwandwe, particularly her emphasis on the need for menstruation to be addressed, recognized, and framed as a health issue, not just a hygiene issue, as also referred by the World Health Organization in 2022. To include conversations to deconstruct a narrative by ending the stigma through various activities, education and awareness campaigns, workshops, reference materials, field visits by engaging communities and experts, as well as collaborations. The presentation by the department were underwhelming. They, for instance, argued that it was too expensive to deliver sanitary pads to provinces such as the Northern Cape. This means that children from provinces such as Northern Cape are left to suffer with no help in sight. Access to sanitary towel is a fundamental need for all females, and the lack of access to these towels makes life very difficult for many females who struggle to afford this. We should be ashamed that in 2025, children are missing out on school because they have no sanitary towels. Their dignity is compromised. It's something that should never happen again as we move forward. I thank you.
Thank you. The IFP.
House Chairperson, thank you. The IFP notes the report following the petition on the sanitary dignity program. We reaffirm our belief that menstrual health is not a luxury. It is a basic human right and a matter of dignity, equality, and access. We note with concern the gaps in distribution, particularly in the Free State, and the inflated procurement costs in provinces like the Northern Cape. The IFP calls for improved interdepartmental coordination and a review of procurement practices. We also welcome a resolution for menstrual education at the primary level and a broader policy review that ensures quality and accessibility. The IFP urges that the community voices remain central to implementation. It is time for real practical interventions that uphold the dignity of every girl child and woman in our country. In light of the issues we have raised, the IFP accepts the report. I thank you, House Chairperson.
Thank you. The PA.
Thank you, House Chair. No declaration from the Patriotic Alliance we support.
The FF Plus.
Thank you, House Chair. We're not interested in making this cheap politics like the MK. No declaration. Thank you.
Action SA. Order, honorable members. We have a speaker at the podium.
Thank you, House Chair. The Action SA would like to bring to the attention of the House that this should not be about provision of sanitary pads. This should be about menstrual health, which is more than just provision of sanitary pads. There are issues of pain, there are issues of discomfort, there are people that will stay home because they've got intractable pain. And as a health issue, the leading ministry should be the Ministry of Health in terms of provision of the services. Women and the Committee for Women, Youth, and People with Disability should have oversight about access to our young women. We need to ensure that we create a responsive government that is not reactive.
Chair,
So
I've
this
been
should
raising my
be an
hand
opportunity.
for some
Honorable Dr. Letlape, just take your seat for a moment. Honorable Skosana, my apologies. I've not been alerted to that fact. Why do you want to be recognized?
Ngithokoze mgcini sihlalo. Ngiphakamisa ngona kumraro kuno dade lapho omncancane, we normally call them plain misses. He's saying it's not cheap for politics. What's that?
No.
What
Thank you,
is cheap?
Honorable Yeah.
Into enjani njalo mgcini
Honorable
sihlalo?
Skosana.
Akungarulule.
Honorable
Cheap
Skosana.
politics yini?
Honorable Skosana.
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. Firstly, our rules say that if one wants to raise a point of order, you need to do it in the moment. You've now 1 minute into 2 minutes into Dr. Letlape's declaration, only raised that point of order, so that cannot be entertained at the moment. But as it is, we will take that comment. I'm on the floor. We will take that comment from the Freedom Front as a matter of fact as their declaration. And they are entitled to an opinion.
That's not, it's an insult. It's not an
Yeah, no, thank you. Please mute yourself. We will continue with the declaration.
Thank you, Chair.
Chair, my hand is up.
What we would like to raise is the fact that this should be
Chair,
an opportunity.
my hand is up.
Honorable member, do you want to raise a new matter? I've already ruled on the previous point of order.
No, Chair, once again, the MK party is a casualty of your wrong rulings. This is not for the first time.
No, honorable member.
And
Honorable
the
member.
MK party
Thank
is
you.
not a
I'm not
punchback.
going to listen to further arguments
punchback
around this
for
point of
everyone.
order. The table staff, please mute that specific member. Honorable members, the ruling has been made. If you are not happy with the ruling, deal with it in terms of the rules. Honorable Letlape, please continue.
Thank you, Chair. What we would expect as Action SA is to ensure that we be provided with a plan of action from the Ministry of Health about the provision of menstrual health services, including sexual and reproductive health education and empowerment of the girl child. What we cannot do is continue to do work piecemeal without effect. So we need to seize this opportunity to ensure that 31 years into the democracy, none of our girl children, whether they are rural, urban, black, white, rich or poor, would suffer this indignation. We need to ask that there be a plan from the department, just like we have a plan for provision of condoms. We need to take women and girl children seriously, and we need to put our money where our mouth is, and this program should be properly funded. Let's stop complaining. It's time to act. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The ICDP.
Thank you, House Chair. House Chair, the ACDP supports the report given the very important role that the provision of free sanitary products and, more importantly, menstrual health plays in the dignity and good health of women in the country. And we commend the initiative of Ms. Ndwandwe of the Free Sanitary Pads movement. And she explained that this program was initiated to ensure that menstrual health rights were recognized and treated as human rights. This is indeed much wider than just the provision of sanitary products. In response to a petition, the department outlined key benefits and challenges of the departmental sanitary dignity program. And while some progress has been made with the program, the ACDP believes that far more needs to be done in this regard. And we agree with the committee that far more concrete action is needed. This, as committee members, when exercising their oversight functions, found that many eligible girls at schools did not benefit from the program, and that this results in thousands of girls being absent from schools. This, as well as the non-delivery of free sanitary products to the Free State, which is indeed concerning. The committee also questioned the number of actual beneficiaries that were targeted in each province versus the number provided in the departmental presentation. And the ACDP believes that these figures must be closely monitored. Lastly, the ACDP agrees with the committee's concerns that the program focused only on the provision of sanitary products and not on menstrual health holistically. This is an aspect that must be further pursued as it affects the holistic health, well-being and dignity of millions of girls and women in the country. The ACDP supports the report. I thank you.
Thank you. The UDM.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. In South Africa, over 7 million women and girls suffer from period poverty, despite the 2019 launch of the Sanitary Dignity Program. This initiative was meant to provide free sanitary pads and ensure menstruation is managed with safety and dignity. Yet, 5 years later, its impact has been severely undermined by poor funding, slow procurement, and government mismanagement. In provinces like Mpumalanga, the situation is worse, riddled with corruption, inflated prices, and substandard products. And there has been reportedly non-delivery of sanitary pads in the Free State province. Some girls receive only 6 months worth of pads instead of a full year. Many go without. This failure has real consequences. Around 30% of schoolgirls miss 4 to 5 days of school each month. That's a quarter of the academic year lost, simply because they can't afford sanitary products. Latest research suggests that over 1,700 schools still use unsafe pit toilets or have no sanitation at all. This strips the girls of privacy and dignity, especially during menstruation, forcing many to stay home. It's not just about hygiene, it's about equity, education, and basic human rights. No girl should have to choose between her period and her future. It is this House's constitutional duty to ensure oversight and accountability in service delivery. The UTM demand urgent action. Fully fund the Sanitary Dignity Program, fix the supply chain,
Thank you, Honorable
and show
Mpenja.
quality.
Your
I thank
time
you.
has now expired. Rise.
Aye. Na cancer mthomoshto. Nge cancer na lavangala. Kavoko ra mera Schmatz. House Chair, we must equally thank Ms. Ndwandwe and the Free Sanitary Pads organization for submitting this petition. Equally thank the Portfolio Committee for consideration. So from ourselves as Rise Mzansi, we see menstrual health and equity as something that is of vital importance to ourselves, which is why we even have a menstrual equity policy. This is so given that 30% of young girls in South Africa face period poverty, and we encourage the expansion of an increase in funding to the Sanitary Dignity Program, particularly to ensure that eligible school girl child have access to sufficient sanitary pads to cover their needs. We believe that period poverty is a human rights concern affecting many young girls in South Africa. So there's something that the Honorable Letlape said, and I nearly donated my time to him, to say that when we talk of period poverty, we should not only look at period poverty only as a lack of access to sanitary products. It has to encompass sexual reproductive education. And that's something that I think from the recommendations, it must be covered. But on behalf of Rise Mzansi, we support the work of the portfolio committee and support their work going forward.
Thank you. Bosa?
Thank you, House Chair. Build One South Africa does support the recommendations and actually the work of the Portfolio Committee on Women, Youth, and Persons with Disabilities. But I do have to say that we do so with a heavy sense of frustration, because year after year, the House sits and speaks about advancing the rights of women and girls. The House adopts reports, passes budgets, but one of the most basic barriers to education for millions of girls in this country remains unsolved. And that's the lack of access to menstrual hygiene products. Research from the Stellenbosch University shows that up to 30% of South African girls miss school during their periods due to the lack of access to sanitary products. And that's equivalent to an entire term. So for many girls, this is the beginning of a pattern of disengagement from the school system, and ultimately it leads to dropouts. This issue is then further exacerbated by pit latrines in schools and poor water and sanitation. It's not a side issue, it's actually an education crisis, because we can't speak about empowering young women and achieving gender parity in education and ultimately access to economic participation while we ignore the injustice that is bleeding literally and figuratively our education system and economic system. And yet, what do we see? What we see is that despite years of advocacy and court challenges and policy proposals, and even a proposal like this via a petition, there's still no coherent, funded, and implemented national plan between the Department of Women, Youth, and Persons with Disabilities and the Department of Basic Education to ensure that no girl misses school due to menstruation. This lack of coordination is actually inexcusable. The Department of Women, Youth, and Persons with Disabilities is mandated to drive gender equality and youth empowerment, and basic education is responsible for ensuring access to education for all learners.
Thank you. ATM?
Thank you, Chair. Where the crisis of girls missing days of school due to being unable to afford sanitary products. This is a widespread problem that affects mostly the poor and vulnerable. We want to make it clear as the ATM, there should be no girl that will miss a day of school due to being on a period. The government must make whatever means possible to ensure free sanitary towels are provided to all girls. We also want to sound caution on the implementation of the Sanitary Dignity Program that has objectives of distributing sanitary towels to girls in different districts. In the Eastern Cape, suppliers from the province are sidelined and companies from outside the province are given the work, yet there is capacity in the province. The Eastern Cape Department of Social Development gives contracts to companies who buy and sell sanitary towels and ignores companies that manufacture sanitary towels and are also in the business of sanitary towels. This is a backward, short-sighted arrangement, as companies that manufacture sanitary towels can also create jobs in the Eastern Cape, and we know the Eastern Cape has got the highest unemployment level in the country. It is also deeply troubling that Black women-owned companies like Ntombam Sanitary Towels with sanitary brands are sidelined in favor of companies that are not manufacturers, but rather procure from companies like Johnson & Johnson that already have a big share of the sanitary towel market. Why sideline an existing local Black female-owned company that is fully in the business of sanitary towels for a middleman-based company unless it is to self-enrich? And want to encourage the officials and the political leadership of the province that they need to prioritize their own people and they need to prioritize companies from the Eastern Cape instead of utilizing companies.
Thank you,
from
Honorable
outside of the
Zungula. Your
Eastern
time
Cape.
has now
That is
expired.
backward.
Al-Jamaa?
Thank you, Chair. Al-Jamaa supports the report. Thank you.
The NCC? The PAC? The UAT?
No declaration.
Good. The ANC.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, honorable members, fellow South Africans, for this opportunity. As the African National Congress, we stand with the adoption of this particular report that seeks to advance and promote the rights of the most vulnerable in our society. As the African National Congress, we have been very clear on promoting the rights of women and young girls. This has been done and seen through the programs that we have implemented across the country, being one of them, the Sanitary Dignity Program. In this report, we had the opportunity for it to be tabled to the Portfolio Committee for us to review, but also to interrogate. Also taking into consideration that we have had high increased rates of reporting where service delivery on these essential products has not reached those who need it the most. On the 29th of October 2024, it was tabled in front of the Portfolio Committee for us to consider, to deliberate, and also to review the presentation that was put before us. This is a critical report, not only for us as members of this parliament, but as South Africans to consider. Taking into consideration, the report also reflected on non-delivery of products in certain institutions and places of basic learning, where learners who are most deserving were not receiving these products. This further brought concern to the Portfolio Committee and further instigated an investigation that seeks to address the challenge that has been brought forward. Now, South Africans, it is imperative for us to realize that a child who misses out on their education is a child who is left out from socio and economic opportunity. We must understand the importance of menstrual hygiene and their products and how they contribute towards restoring and protecting the dignity of our young girls and women. As the African National Congress, we firmly believe that when we say condoms should be easily accessible, sanitary pads should be easily accessible too.
Honorable Chahoke Adonis, please just hold on for a moment. I have a hand from the floor. Honorable Mani, why do you want to be recognized?
Chairperson, we can't have a closure that is contradicting the report from the same party. This party has rejected the petition.
No, Honorable
So we
Mani,
can't have
that's
closure
a point of
and something
debate.
else.
That's not the point of order. Honorable Chahoke Adonis, please continue.
Thank you very much. And perhaps Honorable Manye should familiarize himself with the stance of the African National Congress on this matter. As I proceed, as the African National Congress, we have been very clear in supporting the petition that seeks to advance and accelerate the rights of women and young girls in accessing menstrual hygiene products. Now, honorable members, it is equally important for us to ensure that there is accountability and consequence management in the distribution and procurement of these products. As the Portfolio Committee, these were part of our recommendation, and additionally, as part of our follow-up, we had it instilled in our oversight programs. We also further note that we need to increase the distribution channel by affording opportunities to more women, youth, and persons with disabilities becoming distributors of these products. Additionally, as part of the recommendation that was made by the Portfolio Committee, is for us to ensure that we must have a program that seeks to have cross-intersectional intervention from various departments, having measures that seek to ensure that there is accountability from various departments, having reporting system and matrix that ensure that the efforts are interlinked. The Department of Women, Youth, and Persons with Disability has an oversight responsibility on this initiative, but requires for those departments that are instilled with the responsibility for the successful implementation to do so, such as the Department of Basic Education, the Department of Social Development. We do take note that in various provinces, These two departments are the custodians and those who are responsible for the successful distribution and implementation. We also call upon South African citizens to report in cases of mismanagement, for us to ensure adequate consequence management, accountability, and for us to ensure that learners with special needs, learners coming from disadvantaged backgrounds, learners in dire need, and women in dire needs of this particular products are receiving them in time and adequately. We also further note and request that the relevant department ensures that these products that are being distributed in the various institutions must be accredited and qualified. We cannot promote service delivery of these products where we are not ensuring that the quality and standards are those that are adequate and sufficient for these learners. Additionally, and lastly, as the African National Congress, as we adopt this report, we further note and further put ourselves forward as leaders in government, as members of the GNU, to say we are heavily invested and committed in advancing, protecting, and promoting the lives of the most vulnerable, irrespective of what the others, those who are in the green and whatever color, and those who are in the red might say. The African National Congress stands very firm on its mandate and agenda in advancing economic and social transformation and eradicating poverty for all South African citizens. Chairperson, I thank you.
Thank you. I now order, honorable members. I now recognize the Honorable Chief Whip.
Thanks, Chair. I move that the report be adopted.
Honorable members, the motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections? MK? Order.
This report does not support the petition. We therefore reject the report.
Thank you. Any other objections? With that objection from the MK noted, the report is accordingly agreed to. Order, honorable members. I request members to stand and wait for the presiding officer and the mace to leave the chamber. That concludes the business of the day. The House is adjourned.